Peter Zalmayev, the director of the Eurasia Democracy Institute, can join us live from there. Thanks so much for being with us. Peter, should we be optimistic or frightened by what's happening now in Belarus?
Well, in as much as this is really a time of awakening for a country, for a nation that's been sort of living dormant ever since the dissolution of the Soviet Union. You know, it went almost straight from the Soviet days to this one-man rule by Mr. Lukashenko. Never really knew full liberal democracy, and so this is the first time that the Belarusians are feeling that they can take in hand their own destiny. You're seeing a proliferation of the white, red, white flags, which is the national flag of Belarus. Last time it was the official flag was in 1918, and my feeling is that regardless of the outcome, it will probably be brought back. So in that sense, it is an optimistic thing that is happening. Belarusians are also enjoying a spotlight in a very kind of human, psychological fashion. And on the other hand, as has been mentioned by our colleagues before, whatever Russia will do remains the big unknown. The one thing we can know for certain is that Putin will not contemplate Belarus drifting away from Russia, joining NATO, joining the European Union. So we have to decouple those issues, whether Russia will support Lukashenko and whether Russia will support a fully independent, sovereign Belarus.
Okay. I mean, that really is such a difficult issue there, because Russia in particular does not want another Ukraine on its hands. So, I mean, how similar are the countries in this state, Belarus being in this state right now, compared to the revolution really in Ukraine a few years ago? Is the opposition in the same position now as the Ukrainian opposition was, which at that point was much more clearly anti-Russian than the Belarusian opposition seems to be now?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, yes, the big difference you just mentioned was Ukraine 2014. Much of it stemmed from Yanukovych's last-minute, very heavily pro-Russian tilt, a decision not to sign an agreement with the European Union and go with Russia. And that turned off a lot of Ukrainians, especially the Western nationalist, anti-Russian part of Ukraine. You see, there's not that divide in Belarus between, let's say, Belarusian speakers and Russian speakers, between pro-Russian population and pro-European population. As has been mentioned plenty of times about this leaderless movement, is that, first of all, yes, it lacks clear leaders per se, because most of them are in jail. And Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, the woman who won the election, or she claims she won the election, is more of a token opposition, a symbolic opposition. She herself said that. And so really what it boils down to is fatigue with one man, with Lukashenko and his quarter-of-a-century rule. The people who have risen up are not necessarily against Russia. They're not necessarily pro-EU. So in that sense, there's a weakness there, and there's a strength, because it is a true national uprising. Not even Ukraine knew that in 2014, because, you know, even in Ukraine, there were oligarchic interests behind Maidan, at least some of them, which then came to co-opt at least part of the Maidan. You did not see that in Belarus simply because Lukashenko concentrated all the power and all the corrupt schemes within his hands and the hands of his coterie of aides and allies. So it is a true people's movement, but at the same time it lacks leaders, and just God knows how Putin is going to deal with this.
Fascinating. Okay, Peter, thank you so much, as always, for joining us there from Kiev.